audio working?
Oh my god, now my family keeps texting me like, anyone see? I keep refreshing.
Oh, is that check this one?
Let's see.
It's weird. Oh, yes, it's definitely live.
Okay, now here we go. Here we go.
Videos? Turn videos.
Okay. Hi everyone. Okay, so let me send you guys a link if you guys want to see yourselves. And then just mute your YouTube. Okay, let's just give it a few more. You guys want to give it for a minute for people to join us? All right, we have 4 people watching. Yay. 5 are watching. Okay. Hey everyone, thank you for joining us. Sorry for the bit of a delay. Eric and Kevin, I can't hear you guys.
We are good.
Okay, cool. Okay, so do you guys see yourselves in the YouTube?
We're pulling it up right now.
Yep, pulling up right now.
Okay, so we have
You do.
8 people, 9 people watching. Yay! Okay, so.
So we'll just wait for a couple folks.
Yeah, so right now it shows 10 people watching. So maybe in a few minutes we can start.
Got it. Was there a new email sent out?
No, probably in the other campaign.
Hi, David. Hey, Jenny, Brian, Christine. Thanks for joining us. We're just going to give it a few minutes before we start. Let more people join and find us. Hi, Matthew.
Okay, I didn't get a.
It was.
Oh, I see it.
We're good.
How do I chat? Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, we have 15 people watching us.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, you go to videos and then you just.
Hello, Daniel.
Sorry, Jen. Oh. Yay, Daniel, you found us.
Yeah, it's not super intuitive. You have to go to like the home page and then.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, you guys.
No, don't worry. No, all good.
So it wasn't the channel, it was the home page?
Yeah, or you have to
Sorry,
click and like that icon pops up. But it's not, I mean, not your fault, just YouTube poor design.
Okay. So it wasn't on our page. How to go to YouTube homepage. Okay. All right, so now I have 30 people watching. Yay!
Awesome.
How do you chat? Here we go. All right, so I will be in the chat room.
Yeah, you're subscribed.
Everyone in the chat room, if you are watching, why don't you just drop us a line about where you're joining us from, what city you're at, maybe an Instagram handle. I'm sure we've all seen each other on the gram. Tell us where you are joining us from. Thanks, Jen. That's a good idea. We have 33 people watching.
Awesome.
Woo! Yeah, drop your handle. That's my sister, Kimberly. Awesome. Hi, Bob. Hi,
Yeah.
Mai.
Cape Cod, we see you. Jersey, Boston.
Ripping. There we go.
Yes, Boston. That's my hometown. Yeah, Matthew. Awesome. I love the East and West Coast vibes here.
Yes.
San Jose, Kevin. Hey, you're everywhere. Dallas, Texas. We love Texas. Amazing. Hi, Kyle. We have 41 people watching.
Hey.
Eric and Kevin, when do you want to get started in terms of the audience count? That's my dad, Nguyen.
Oh,
I'm down to get started.
Okay,
if we're
cool.
ready.
Well, I guess I'll just start with a little intro. Welcome. We have 40 people watching right now. I'm sure more will roll in. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in on our YouTube live. Thank you so much for your patience. We had to switch it up really last minute because we had so many RSVPs that we wouldn't have been able to host everyone through the Zoom. So this is actually our first time pushing an event onto YouTube live. Sorry about the channel thing. We're going to work on it and make it better for you in the future, of course. But I just want to say first, happy Saturday, and also more importantly, happy APAM. Woo! If you're unfamiliar with what APAM is, APAM stands for Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. It's a great time to celebrate, all things Asian American people, culture, experiences. And we're really excited to kick it off with a collabo Zoom session with our friends Kasama Ca Phe. Woo! Who you're gonna meet, you can see Kasama here. It's Eric and Kevin, and I'll let them introduce themselves in a bit. But I just wanted to kind of share a little bit about how we first met. We met back in 2018, really, when I just launched Nguyen Coffee Supply, and we were all and you guys were doing your Vietnamese, Southeast Asian coffee pop-ups in the Bay Area. And, our community is like small and growing. So naturally we found each other like, oh, you're doing Vietnamese coffee. Oh, you're doing Southeast Asian coffee. Like, let's work together. And since then, it's just been nice to kind of like be a part of this journey. Like, I really love the work you all are doing, like on the ground, like sharing the experience and being able to connect and educate people face to face. And I can't wait for your brick and mortar. I know that's in the works. Was I supposed to say that?
yeah, that's
Look
okay.
out for their brick and mortar
Out,
Bay
out
Area.
into the universe,
Yes.
and we gotta make it happen.
Yeah. So if you're in the Bay Area, make sure you give Kasama Ca Phe a follow, because they are on their journey as well to building a future brick and mortar to continue growing the Southeast Asian coffee experience. All right. So I will be kind of just hanging out in the chat room. So if you have questions, feel free to just drop questions in the chat room. I'm gonna keep an eye on the chat and like field questions to you guys. And that's it. So now I'm going to pass over to you guys to do your intros, and you go hop right into your tutorial. And then for everyone watching at the very end, we can also, I'm sure Eric Kevin would take questions in between. So if they open up for questions, just drop in the chat, and then I'll field it over. Otherwise, we'll do some Q&A at the very end. Cool?
Sounds good.
Awesome.
All right.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thanks, Sarah, for the intro. And again, happy Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. Hope everyone is staying safe, staying strong out there. We're happy to be just connecting with the community and hanging out today. So Kevin's going to talk a little bit more about us, and then we can dive in.
Yeah, very happy to be repping. As Sarah had mentioned, I'm Kevin. This is Eric, and we are Kasama Ca Phe. Just a little about us. We are a cafe concept specializing in Southeast Asian coffee offerings. We've done pop-ups throughout the Bay, and a little about our name. Kasama is this idea of togetherness / companionship in Tagalog, and cafe is obviously coffee for Vietnamese. So, or Vietnamese and coffee in Vietnamese. So more or less the name is a combination of our cultures coming together and our larger vision more broadly. And that's kind of showcased here on this panel right here. And then Eric can tell you a little about how we.
Yeah. Well, Sarah touched on it. Yeah, when we started a couple of years back, we really only found a few folks who are championing Southeast Asian coffee stateside. So that community is so small, like she mentioned, that once we kind of linked up on social, it just made sense to partner up because we resonated so much with, what they're all about. So here we are doing a couple events together and just spreading the good word of Southeast Asian coffee, Vietnamese coffee.
Exactly. So I'm here to talk a little about our Cafe Trung, or egg coffee. Giving you guys a brief history, it was founded during French occupation around the 1940s. The legend goes that there are milk shortages, so people would often pair their Robusta drip, which is usually known for being much more bold and strong, with condensed milk. And more or less that's what we'll be doing today, except with the combination of egg yolk. The cafe credited with finding egg coffee is Cafe Yang out in Hanoi. And so egg coffee itself is a Vietnamese drink. It's known for having a very rich texture and has strong complementary flavors. We're going to be using the bold Robusta drip from the phin over here. And we're gonna pair that with a fluffy, silky egg cream, which we'll be making a little later. And we like to think of it as like an everyday drink, something you can really enjoy, or even more like a treat or dessert. Depends how you really favor it. But Eric will take you through the ingredients we have.
Cool. Yeah, so right now we're gonna go through just the prep for this egg coffee. So the list of ingredients that we'll have. So today we're gonna be using Nguyen Coffee Supply Grit. So this is their 100% pea berry Robusta rollout. We've been working with Sarah to really push just the Robusta bean out here in the States. We feel like there's a lot to be said in terms of just changing the narrative that it kind of has as being quote unquote inferior, because it's kind of been seen and evaluated through this more westernized lens. So we're kind of just trying to shift that narrative and say, you know what, Robusta is its own thing that deserves love in its own right. So definitely go with a Robusta coffee. That's essential for a coffee like this. So whether you're doing the grit or the loyalty blend with Arabica Robusta, Robusta being key. We have the egg yolks. So one serving is going to be 2 egg yolks. As a disclaimer, we understand that, you know, because we're working with raw egg yolks, there's that health safety concern. Typically at a pop-up, we'd serve using pasteurized eggs, which kind of minimize that risk of bacteria infection. However, a study found that contamination, at least in modern egg processing, minimizes that chance of contamination. So, and also the exposure to the heat from the coffee is going to help minimize that. But so we have the Robusta coffee, 2 egg yolks, and then we're doing a sweetened condensed milk. Some recipes will add sugar. We found a nice ratio of egg yolks to condensed milk that still ends up yielding a rich egg cream, but it's not too sweet. And then to finish it off, we have some cocoa and cinnamon powder.
Yep.
Kevin's gonna go ahead and go through the tools and instruments.
Awesome. So here we have our fins as well as the serving glass, which will be dripped into. We have 2 different size fins just because I know everyone's working with slightly different instruments, just so we're consistent with the brew times in accordance with everyone watching. We have our scales over here, which we'll use for measurements. You can also use measuring cups. We'll provide the measurements for those as well. Here we have our Baratza grinder. You're also welcome to use ground beans. We personally like to grind it fresh because it has more flavors. Yes, and then our kettle over here, you could just boil hot water on your end, and then we have an electric whisk back here. Yeah, and we really recommend an electric whisk because if you do it by hand when you're beating the egg cream, it kind of takes a while. You're definitely going to need some manual dexterity. We've seen a lot of friends trying to make Dalgona coffee and definitely got a good arm workout in doing so. But yeah, definitely possible either way, and we'll talk about the time and length to whip it as we go through. Cool. And so at a high level, just going through the process, we're going to be brewing the coffee, and then we'll be whipping the egg cream, and then we'll be pairing it together to enjoy. So just want to open the floor to any questions before we move on.
I'll be looking in the chat. Good to go? Shout out, Peter.
Looks like there are questions so far. Is it essential to have the equipment to make this drink? Scales, electric whisk, etc.
Yeah, so it's definitely not essential. We understand that not everyone might have a coffee setup like this. This is kind of the equipment that we use for our pop-ups, and we kind of take a more precise and scientific approach to how we brew the coffee. But I mean, we also have, when we go through the instructions, just kind of stuff that you might have at home in place of these kind of supplies. So it's not essential, but definitely helps kind of keep everything tight.
And I just want to add the electric whisk. Kevin, what you were saying, I think the electric whisk is very important because if you're whisking by your hand, it's actually really bad for your wrists. Yeah. Right? So not only is it like exhausting on the body, but it's actually really bad for your wrists and for like carpal tunnel syndrome. So I definitely would not recommend trying to whisk with your hands. Go for the electric whisk.
Yes.
Thank you, Wayne. Great question.
Cool. Awesome. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started with the first step, which is brewing the black coffee. So the first step is to heat your coffee. We're going to be using 200 grams of water or 200 milliliters. We recommend 1 cup of water. So if you have a moment right now to start boiling or we're using an electric kettle. We're gonna heat that to 195 to 205 degrees Fahrenheit. That seems to be the optimum temperature when we're brewing the coffee. So go ahead and start getting that going. We're gonna go ahead and measure out our coffee. So today we're gonna be using 20 grams of coffee. If you have measuring cups at home, that's gonna be equivalent to about 1 tablespoon plus 1 teaspoon. So tablespoon plus a teaspoon, that's more or less 20 grams of coffee. Go ahead and measure that out. Again, we are using fresh whole beans. So we're gonna go ahead and grind those. Otherwise, if you have pre-ground, that's also great. If you are grinding at home, you wanna grind this to a medium fine, almost like a sand-like consistency.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
Cool.
So we'll get that grinding. Any questions in the chat?
Yeah, actually, there's a question from Jen Wu. She asked, can you use an electric frother instead of a whisk?
So we've played with an electric frother. What we found is that because the egg yolks are so dense, an electric whisk is going to have that power to really withstand kind of the density of the egg yolks. A milk frother does work. It isn't recommended. It's more so like those light liquids like milk or milk alternatives. So we definitely recommend a whisk or something that can kind of power through like the density of the egg yolks.
And also, Daniel asked, what setting are you using on your baratza?
Yeah, so the setting that we're using is 14. So that's going to be like a little bit under like what you would standardly use for like a pour over, but like more coarse than an espresso. Cool. So now that we have the coffee ground, we're going to grab our phin filter and we're going to place the grounds in and use the gravity press to compact the grind. So for both of these phens, we're using a gravity press. We've kind of done research on a bunch of phens. There's the screw on and other variations, but we found that the gravity press has really given us the most consistent output in terms of time and taste. So we prefer the gravity press, but the screw on definitely works as well. So once you put the grinds in, again, compress it with that gravity press. And then we are going to start with our first pour. So we're all zeroed out on the scale. We'll grab our hot water. Yep. Okay, cool. So for this first pour, we're going to do 40 grams of water or 1.5 ounces. And this is what we call the bloom. So this is the whole point of the bloom is you want to really get those beans saturated so that they're ready. They're emitting the gases so that they extract the most flavor. So the bloom is actually a very important step. You might see times where people just start pouring water, and that necessarily isn't a wrong way to do it, but the bloom really extracts the most aroma and the most flavor in this process. So once you do that first bloom of 40 grams, you're gonna wait 30 to 40 seconds just to let the coffee gas up.
Oh yeah, sure.
Very good. And then once we hit that like 45-second mark, we'll go ahead and start our first pour, or sorry, our second pour. So the second pour, we're gonna do 60 grams of water or 2 ounces. So we want to read 100. And then we're just gonna let that sit for the first couple minutes as it drips. If you're familiar with the Vietnamese phin brewing method, you'll know that it's a much slower drip. So we found, I mean, just looking back to one of our original inspirations for doing Kasama Ca Phe is we felt like the phin process in general is it's a very unique way of brewing. And it's also, because it's slower, it's much more therapeutic and we enjoy the process in that sense. So yeah, just kind of like let that drip a couple minutes. It'll take some time. You might find that the gravity press starts to shift a little bit. So it's normal to kind of like fix it so that it like evens out. Just kind of keep an eye on it. After a couple minutes have passed, we're at about the 2-minute mark. We're going to do our final pour. So once that hits.
Yep.
Are there any questions in the meantime?
Yeah, there are a few questions actually.
Okay, cool.
One question is, can we drink this iced later?
We haven't had it iced, but we don't see why it wouldn't be good. Typically, this Hanoi style egg coffee is served hot, so it's kind of like a latte in that sense. But definitely, once you mix it all together, serving it iced could be good, especially as the weather heats up.
Okay, another question is somebody asked, where do you get your phin and does it need to be legit? And I want to ask, how would you define what a legit phin is?
Oh wow. Yeah, so I mean, as we mentioned before, we went through a whole bunch of phins, a whole bunch of different sizes. Uh, General characteristics of the phin is that it's going to be made out of stainless steel. There are ceramic versions as well, but the ones that you'll find at most restaurant stores, or in our case, we find them really at Vietnamese restaurant stores or like Asian, more Asian focused restaurant stores. So right now we're in San Jose. Shout out San Jose. But there's a restaurant store out here that supplies a lot of like the more restaurant, like in restaurant sized phins, especially as you're keeping up with, the volume of like a cafe or a restaurant. So we have some huge ones that like help us keep up with that. So definitely look at Asian restaurant stores, Vietnamese restaurant stores. But also shout out Nguyen Coffee Supply. They have a great phin kit for the individual brews at home. This one's nice just for single serving at home. Definitely does the job. But if you're looking to kind of brew more for the family or at scale, definitely look into those bigger sized.
Yeah, and I just want to add, great point, Eric, about the different materials that phins can be made of. The ceramic phins are really more of like a decorative item. You could brew in them technically, but they're not really the best for brewing because of, how they hold heat, and like also the holes, the filter holes are generally much bigger because of the material. And also you'll find phin filters that are made from stainless steel and also aluminum. Aluminum is actually a really great option. For brewing, but the most common one are stainless steel ones. Someone asked, if you don't have a scale, about how much water is 60 grams?
Sure. So 60 grams is going to equal to about 2 ounces of water.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 2 ounces. Cool. So did we top off? Yeah. Okay. So sorry. In the meantime, we're gonna do that last pour, which was 60 grams. So that puts us at a total of 160 on the scale. So. With that, we're ready to kind of move on to the egg cream portion. If you have the lid for your phins, it's nice to just kind of place it on top, keep this hot. We can place it to the side while we make the cream. Some recipes will call for like a bowl of hot water to kind of keep it warm. We found at the temperature that we're brewing at, and if you just brew the cream kind of in tandem, the coffee's still gonna be hot and once it's ready to serve. So with that, we'll go ahead and move on to the cream portion. Are there any questions in terms of the black coffee phin setup so far? Or are we good to go?
I think we're good.
Okay, awesome. Cool.
Great. Cool. So I'll be taking over now, and then Eric will be making the egg cream itself. So for this portion, we're going to need the eggs and our sweetened condensed milk and another measuring tool to kind of get the ratio right. So, oh, and don't forget your electronic mixer.
Whisk.
Awesome. All right. So we're going to crack the eggs first and separate the egg yolk. And an easy way to do this is once you crack the egg, is just kind of balance in between to separate the egg whites. And you really just want to retain the yolk portion. In our experience, each yolk kind of weighs between 15 to 20 grams. Yeah. And the reason why we separate the egg yolk is, well, one, that's traditionally how it's made, and the yolk itself has majority of the taste / nutrients and flavoring. If you want, you can make a protein supplement out of the egg whites separately.
And I know our recipe for a single serving accounts for 2 egg yolks, but we're using 4 egg yolks today because we're making one for each of us. So
yep.
No sharing. All right. Already.
Cool. We were supposed to tear it out. That's okay. We can get in a different vessel.
Well, we can do it. It'll just be double, so we can just do like 80 grams or 40 grams in there.
Yeah. Cool. So once you have the egg yolk separated, based on the amount of egg yolks you have, you're going to add equal parts condensed milk. If you don't have a scale, or if you don't have a scale, you won't be able to measure. But more or less, each egg yolk is 15 to 20 grams, as we mentioned. And so we're pouring out 80-ish grams of condensed milk to pair with equal parts yolk. Yeah.
So again, if you're at home and you're doing the 2 egg yolks, it's going to be a total of 40 grams of condensed milk or 1.5 ounces.
Yes, that's correct. And if you want it on the sweeter end, you're technically allowed to add more. We think this option best works as like a regular coffee drink that isn't overwhelmingly like desserty. Cool. Awesome. Cool. Now that we have our equal parts egg yolk and equal parts condensed milk, what we're going to do is start whipping it. So Eric has the electronic mixer over here and he'll get started. So what we really recommend when you start the electronic whisker is start slow and then add speed depending on your options, just because you want to prevent the splashback. Generally, depending on how fast you're actually whipping it, you're looking at about 30 to 60 seconds. Once it gets that really nice, very creamy texture is when you know you'll stop. And you'll notice that the color changes from a bolder yellow to a nice, creamier, lighter yellow. And Eric will show you what that actual consistency looks like once it's wrapped up. If you're mixing by hand, which is pretty difficult, we actually recommend whisking side to side. In our experience, this adds the most shear force and is the most productive way to whisk.
Are there any questions while we're whipping this up?
There is one question that came in. It kind of goes back to the bloom. Christine asked, why do you pour twice after the bloom instead of all the way to the top after the bloom?
Yeah. So the reason why we split it up is one, to kind of prevent it from what we call collapsing or like starting to leak. So if you split up those pours, it kind of ensures that you're kind of getting just a consistent speed of drip. Also, it allows to saturate, you saturate the grounds in 2 steps, which kind of just helps extract that flavor more evenly. So
yeah. And secondly, depends on your vessel size. Sometimes with your second brew, it may already fill it up. So
cool. Also, Bing asked, is the condensed milk sweetened?
Oh yes, forgot to mention, yes, this is a sweetened condensed milk. We personally use organic Santini, which is based out of East Bay in California. Yeah, if you don't have a sweetened condensed milk, you can use condensed milk and then pair it with sugar. But just condensed milk is in our experience, sorry.
Yeah. And if you don't have condensed milk on hand, you could do it in-house. So it's pretty much sugar and milk, and you just heat over a griddle until it starts to kind of coagulate and turn into a condensed milk. So yeah, cool.
I'm gonna just show them what the consistency looks like real quick. So Eric is done whipping. This is our final little mixture. You can see it's very thick. Got that nice airy creaminess that we're looking for, which will pair and sit directly on top of the coffee itself. So if there's no more questions about the egg cream, we're going to talk about the actual preparation itself. All right. So we'll be showing you how to serve a layered cafe chung with the brew on the bottom and the egg cream on top. You might also see it paired differently, where the egg cream sits first, like it is at Cafe Yang, and then they add the Robusta drip. There's no real right or wrong way. We just like doing the layered method because, well, one, it's aesthetically pleasing, and two, it allows us to enjoy the complexity of both layers. Okay, so after you remove the phin filter from the serving glass, you're gonna have roughly, about this amount of drip. I forgot the actual yield, but we recommend a ratio of about 2/3 of black coffee to 1/3 egg cream. So feel free to go with your preference if you want it more on the desserty side. The way we prepared the egg cream so far will make it such that you have more egg cream if needed, if you want to add closer to a 1-to-1 ratio. But basically, you're going to have a coffee in one hand, the egg cream in the other. You're going to tilt the glass at an angle and slowly pour the egg cream to form the base layer. All right, slow and steady is very key here. Yep. So once you see that layers start to form, from there you can add more directly on top, still slow and steady, but by this case, the egg cream itself won't drop down. Awesome.
Is that about right?
Yeah, looks good.
Cool. So this is what it looks like post pour. You can see the clear layering between that egg cream on top and the black coffee on bottom.
All right, and I'm gonna do it on this one over here. Yes.
Again, tilting the glass at an angle, letting that cream form that base layer. Look at that finesse.
Amazing.
Awesome. Yeah, so if you know you did your whip right to the right consistency if it's sitting nicely in a separated layer like this. If you find your yolk or your cream to be runny, that just means that you need to give it a little bit more air. So just keep whipping it.
Beautiful. Wow. Look at that.
Awesome.
So that's that layering we're talking about. We're looking at like roughly 2/3 coffee to 1/3 egg cream.
Oh,
awesome. I'm talking about garnishing.
Yeah. And then final step, optional. We have some freshly ground cinnamon here. We like to top it off with a little cinnamon. If you don't have cinnamon, cocoa powder is good as well. One, it just looks amazing.
Yep, it looks pretty.
And two, it does add a nice touch once you start sipping it.
Yep.
Look at that beautiful finesse.
Wow, I want to take a picture of this.
All right, cool. And then Jeff, I mean, it's pretty much ready to go, ready to enjoy. We recommend enjoying it in layers, but feel free to mix it as well, or you can start in layers and mix it as you go down.
Yeah. So this is the little
look at that.
cinnamon on top.
Yeah. So if you are gonna sip it in layers, just sip it at a 45-degree angle. Shout out Happy Lemon, and you'll get a little bit of coffee underneath, and you'll get that balance of the egg. So cheers.
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 Cheers. That looks amazing, guys.
Get a little egg coffee mustache. It's a vibe. All right.
Wow.
Awesome. Yeah, let's take a look at any questions we have so far.
Somebody asked, can you sub regular milk if diabetic? So maybe you can use like a condensed milk and then add like a diabetic sweetener afterwards.
Yeah, I can see that.
Definitely see that working like a plain condensed milk and then a diabetic sweetener. If you are lactose intolerant, there is coconut condensed milk, which Sarah mentioned in her last Vietnamese coffee tutorial. There's one from Nature's Charm, and it's milk-free, so that's a great alternative too.
Yeah.
Awesome. People are liking it, like cheese foam on top.
That looks amazing, guys. Great job. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah. V mentioned we'll be posting the recipe later. I think Sarah already has one on our website. But yeah, we're thinking about posting an actual proper video later down the line too. So
it is like cheese tea, that cheese tea foam. Yeah, that's what makes this drink so pleasurable. We think is that you get that balance of that thick foamy layer with just like the nice cold coffee. We do want to emphasize the importance of or not the importance, like we do recommend running with a Robusta coffee here because that egg cream layer is so rich and velvety and sweet. It pairs really nicely with that bold Robusta profile. So
the condensed milk bottle. So yeah, it is really hard to squeeze out initially, especially if you refrigerate it. One thing that we find easier to pour out of the bottle with is if you warm it up beforehand or leaving it in hot water. So
yeah, same. I also put my condensed milk in a squeeze bottle and I don't thin it out, Margaret. If you just let it sit out for a few minutes or like put it in hot water, it'll become really smooth and it'll actually squeeze out really easily. I know that you guys have played around with this egg coffee recipe a lot. Have you ever played around with a vegan version? Like what would like an egg yolk? I mean, I guess it defeats the purpose of an egg coffee, but have you ever thought of that?
Yeah, I mean, we're always looking to find ways to accommodate like everyone's needs or preferences. We haven't actually experimented with a vegan version, but I'm sure we could do some searches on seeing some egg alternatives or similar way to achieve that thick airiness with a vegan condensed milk, like a coconut condensed milk. But yeah, that sounds exciting.
Yeah. What do you guys do with the leftover egg whites? Good question, Matthew.
Why just grill it?
Yeah, grill it. Have a nice egg white breakfast. Try not to waste the egg whites. So, definitely find like a way to just throw it on the stove. it'll pair nicely with your egg coffee in the morning.
I get that protein gains.
Barb's asking, can you use one's electric mixer with a whip attachment? Yes. You can. So
That's what
you wanna
cafe
show,
does. Yeah.
you want to show ours. So we have like just a standard hand mixer, but you can definitely do it with like a KitchenAid stand mixer, anything that kind of whips milk into like a whipped consistency.
Yeah, that one's about 30 off Amazon. But you could even use the gigantic bowl with the two little, I forgot the name of that device, but we've seen scales who produce at coffee shops who produce at larger scale kind of do it like that.
Yes. Cool. For those who made the coffee at home, let us know what you think. Drop it in the comments if you're feeling this.
Yeah, and make sure you tag us so we can see what you made. We'd love to see your egg coffees.
Awesome.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your egg coffee recipe.
Yes,
Yeah.
It was very awesome. Thank you for having us again, Sarah. We just have some.
Awesome.
Do we have more questions?
I think we do. We can hang a bit. What was the brand name of the organic condensed milk?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So the one that we're using is called California. You'll see it. They do sell it in stores like a Target or like a Whole Foods or something. But it's a California organic. You'll know it because it's like a green can with like a cow on it.
Yeah.
I believe their space is based in the East Bay. I'm not sure where the farms are, but yeah, California organic condensed milk. It's good stuff. You could also go with your standard. I know there's the longevity brand, OG.
Or the black and white one.
Yeah, really no wrong way to do it.
Oh, someone noticed.
Now to make it one more time. Yes. Cool. Yeah. Happy to stay on a little bit if anyone has any more questions. Otherwise, thanks for hosting us, Sarah.
So I mentioned the hot water temperature. We do about 205 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah. As long as you're in between 195, 205, that's that sweet spot temperature. There's when sell the coffee makers. Yes. Sarah, you want to talk about your phens?
Yeah, we have phene filters on our website and phene kits.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're branded pretty cool.
Also, going back to that question on what like a quality phene looks like. When Coffee Supply got it unlocked, but it's like you can kind of tell also by the holes in the phene if they're more evenly distributed and if it looks like a quality finish where the finishes are like smoothed out and sanded off. Sometimes you'll find cheaper ones that still work, but they may have like rougher edges or the holes may be inconsistently placed. So one sign of a good phene is like just consistent concentric circle dots that yield for an equal slow drip.
Yeah, saving the extra whip. It won't keep its like fluffiness / texture for a prolonged period of time, but honestly, we'll probably just drink it after this video.
Just,
like no
a
shade.
little more.
Yeah.
Like how long would you say someone could keep the egg whip? Because I know that you need the air, right, for it to kind of sense up the layer. Like, would it be like 3 hours the next day?
I mean, honestly, I would try to use it within like an hour or so.
Yeah.
No more than
if you saved it to the next day, could you re-whip it, or does that become like a health hazard actually with the egg yolk?
We haven't tried, but I probably wouldn't recommend.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You want to enjoy this as fresh as possible, especially because you're dealing with yolks. However, if you are going with pasteurized egg yolks, I'm sure there's more shelf life and it can kind of last longer that way.
Yep.
Yeah. Good tip.
Cool. Any final questions before we wrap up?
Or do you have any questions for us, Sarah? Or I don't know.
No, I actually learned a lot. That piece about the egg cream like sitting on top of the coffee. Yeah. That was really good to know about, having the right amount of air whipped into there. Yeah, very beautiful.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, yeah, since we're done with Q&A, Eric will kind of be talking about like what we're up to next, and then we'll be wrapping up.
Cool. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously with everything going on, people have been asking us if we're going to be doing any type of delivery or takeout options, because we do miss serving our friends and family, our community. So we are exploring delivery options in the Bay Area. So everywhere from San Jose to San Francisco, East Bay, we're looking for ways to kind of get our coffee in your homes.
Brewed with NCS.
Yes. As well as a campaign to kind of help, those folks working so hard on the front line, etc. So definitely stay tuned for updates. We post pretty regularly on our social. So follow us on Instagram at Kasama Ca Phe and find out ways how you can continue to just keep in touch.
Yeah, support. Yeah. And I guess in concluding, we really want to thank Sarah and Nguyen Coffee Supply for having us last. Looking forward to our continued partnership, and thank you everyone for tuning in. I hope it was a good learning experience and you got to drink something kind of pleasant. So
Yes.
Cheers to that.
Cheers.
Thank you so much, guys. Cheers. Thank you for doing this tutorial. And thank you everyone for joining. We'll see you on the gram.
Yes.
Thank you. Stay safe.
Bye. We can stay on this, you guys.
Okay, cool.
We end this.
Is there
Bye,
any
everyone.
cut off?